Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So not the best day yesterday at all. We had a good run with Have Secret. Unfortunately he finished second, and the rest were really disappointing, to be honest. A couple of lasts in there. Merlin Giant ran well for a long way before hitting a hurdle. I can definitely see him winning a race soon. Not sure what it is though. But yeah, not up to our standards, to be honest. Our selections yesterday. Moving on to today, no, tomorrow even, sorry. Who do I like in the first race, the 150 at Goodwood? Many a Star. So Many a Star, looking at the ratings, you can see, has this huge figure here. This 139.7, huge in terms of what he's up against. A 139.7, and he's also got this 134.5, which actually there's not loads that are above that 134.5. What is there? 1, 2... That's the same. 3, 4. That's the same. 4. Just 4 efforts from the rivals are better than that 134.5. Now let's have a quick look at those. At Thirsk, Haydock, Doncaster, Catterick. This 134.5 was at Goodwood. So I'm suggesting that he can run a 134.5 at Goodwood. And I really think he should be able to, because he's also ran this 139.7 also at Goodwood. These both came on, as you can see here, good to soft, so the ground I'm hoping won't be an issue for him. And this one was at Goodwood. And interestingly, this isn't actually his win last year. He went on to run here again in August. This was his win last year when running 134.5. So he actually ran better when he had a bit of cut in the ground at this course and distance. So I'm hoping that he can run a good race here, bounce back. He won this race last year off 85. He runs here off 83. The tongue tie is on first time to hopefully help him. He's only had the 2 runs. He's not had multiple runs this season and ran atrociously in all of them. Epsom, I didn't think was the plan for him. No, I did think was the plan for him, sorry. I thought he was going to run well there. York, I'm not sure why they went to York 2 weeks later under Mohammed Tabti, whereas I think this might have been their plan after Epsom. With that in mind, I'm hoping he can run a really big race here, and I think he's overpriced. If I just refresh the page so we can have a look at his price, he is currently available at 12 to 1, which is a price that, I mean, he only went off 8 to 1 last year for £2 higher mark and won it. Why can't he run another really big race here? I certainly think he can run another really big race here. At 12 to 1, I think he's the bet in the race. Moving on to the 225 at Goodwood, the Coral Summer Handicap, and there's going to be 2 in this race. One that both of them we have to do really. The first one is Yukon Glen, who's down £2 to 96. That means he's £6 lower than when he was 3rd in this race last year, not beaten that far by Badge Door and Yukon Glen. Now, after Trawlerman won this, I said he will win the Ebor. And he did win the Ebor, because I thought he won it quite comfortably, or he won it in the style of a horse who things kind of went wrong, and yet he still won. Now, on that day, Trawlerman was running off 97, and Benoit was taking 5 off. Last time out at Meydan, in a Group 2, he was running off a mark of 113. So, Goodwood Day, he was running off an effective 92, £21 lower. And I think Yukon Glen can certainly run a really big race here. And he's overpriced, for sure, in my opinion. He is currently, wrong one, he's currently 25 to 1. For a horse who's finished 3rd in this race off a £6 higher mark. And it's the trip that he wants. This is key to Yukon Glen. He has been running over different types of trips. So he went, the last 1 mile 6 race, he went from, he finished 7th in Ebor over 1 mile 5. He finished 3rd in an Old Borough Cup over 1 mile 6. The next time he ran over similar to that trip was the World Pool, Queen's Summer Cup. He finished 4th, not beaten that far, off 102. He then went up to 2 mile 2. He doesn't stay 2 mile 2. He dropped back to 1 mile and 5 for a race at Ayr. And if he'd run with the group, I think he would have won it. He ended up drifting over to the far side. They then dropped him back to the old Newton Cup trip. He's not quick enough for that. And then they went back up to 2 mile, which he doesn't stay at Newbury. This is his first run over the correct trip since Ayr, really, where he ran well, and I actually think he would have won it off 99. So why can't he run a big race here of 96? I certainly think he can at Goodwood. The danger, and the one who, you know, it's very possible they could bump into another trawler man here, is Sweet William, who, despite winning by going up £7 for his last time out win, that's not enough to stop him, in my opinion. It's all about whether the drop back in trip really affects him, because he was so strong at the finish last time. The ground should mean it feels closer to the 2 mile, or closer to a 1 mile 6, 1 mile 7 race, which he does get. So does Yukon Glen, just. And I think Sweet William is priced accordingly. He's 9-4 on the basis that there could be a hell of a lot more to come. But I do want to back them both, because I think if Sweet William doesn't run up to scratch and, you know, kind of bounces, because he's out very quickly. He only ran on the 22nd of July. What was that? 14 days ago. If he does bounce or doesn't go on from that effort, I think the one who is interesting of those away from the favourite is Yukon Glen, who's very well handicapped with this race in mind. Moving on to the Coral Stewards Cup, the 335, and there's actually going to be 3 in this race that I'm going to do. I don't like doing 3, but it is a big field. It is 28 runners, and I think 3 is justified in this race. And the first one we will start with is Orazio. Yes, he's favourite, available at 5s. He's the right favourite. He didn't quite get things going to plan at Ascot. He still ran well for 6th. The way he won at Ascot the time before that probably suggests his mark of 102 is not the top mark for him yet. He can definitely go better than that. He's still rated 102 after the race at Ascot, and if he gets everything going his way, he is the one to beat still. So at 5-1, I think he is worth a bet in this race. The other 2 that I like in this race, the second one, again, another one I have to do really. It is Summergand. Can't ignore Summergand, as I put here. A drop of £1 is kind to Lethal Levi. Definitely be most keen on Summergand in the Constantine, where I said that I'd be backing Summergand now multiple times. He ran fine last week when he was 4th at York, just got beaten by the right horses, and it was probably, you know, a couple of weeks too soon for him. Whether it's still a couple of weeks too soon for Summergand, and whether he really wants this cut in the ground, I'm not sure. But I mean, I'd be gutted if he went and won a race when we weren't on him. He's going to start winning races soon, and he's currently available at 16-1. There's enough 16s available to say he's 16-1, and I think he's worth backing in this race. The third horse that I'm going to tip up in this race, I've actually been quite critical of his placement from John Quinn. Mr. Wagyu, where is he? Why was he not running in the Scurry Handicap? But interestingly, maybe John has targeted this race with him and this meeting with him. If we actually look at John's 3 runners at Goodwood this week, he had Lord Redderford win, he had Breege finish 2nd, when I think he probably should have won, and then he had JM Jungle yesterday win. It's very possible that he's been targeting this meeting with his runners. He's got Highfield Princess later today, and then he's got Mr. Wagyu tomorrow. I think Highfield Princess will win, and Mr. Wagyu certainly has a chance. So Mr. Wagyu is a course and distance winner in the fact that he won the consolation race back in 2021, really impressively on soft ground, beat Abel Kane running away, similar to how Lord Redderford won 2 years ago. Last year he did come back for this race and he finished 10th. He wasn't beaten that far, and he was only just behind Summergand that day. That day Mr. Wagyu was actually running off a mark of 100 when he finished 10th. He turns up here off a mark of 95, so he's £5 lower. Clearly they thought he would go well at Thirsk last time out, because he went off the 3-1 favourite, and he disappointed. His effort at Ascot was fine. His effort at Haydock wasn't too bad. Go back to his effort at Epsom, which was probably the last race that he was actually trying to win. He actually finished 3rd, not beaten far by Badri. And I wonder whether they've been very careful with his planning this year, and they've got him back to this race of a decent mark. And I think at 20-1, he's a great price. What did he go off in this race last year? He only went off 10s for this race last year. So he went off 10s. He's £5 lower. maybe has been targeted better at this race this year. Actually, he went off 106 last year because he was carrying a £6 penalty as well. So he's effectively £11 lower. So he's got to be in our equation. Mr. Wagyu at 20s. So I'm doing all three of those. Mr. Wagyu at 20 to 1, Summergand at 16s, and the Ratio at 5s, just in case he does show that he's miles clear of his mark. I think both Summergand and Mr. Wagyu are well handicapped, but a Ratio could be still progressing and show that he's a group horse still running in a handicap. And the final horse, or the final race that I want to look at, is the final race on the card. It's the 5:20, the Coral Handicap over 1 mile and 11 yards. And the horse I am interested in here is Skeptic at 10 to 1. So Skeptic disappointed last time out at Sandown when he was 12 for 15 under Holly Doyle. He went a 5 to 1 favourite that day, having come from a race at Goodwood where he was a very impressive winner. So he's got the course form, having won at Goodwood. He's also clearly thought to be still ahead of his mark in the fact that he went off favourite for the Coral Challenge. A good handicap as well. It's not an easy race to win. He was rated 92 that day. He still runs off 92. The interesting thing, obviously Callum takes £3 off, which is also a good thing. So he's effectively running off a £3 lower mark than when he went off favourite for a feature handicap. This isn't quite as strong. And if you actually watch that race back, Holly Doyle kind of dived down the inside. She went towards the rail. Now those on the rail included Baltimore Boy, Orban, but eventually he switched out. Major Partnership was right up there on the inside. Who else was right up there on the inside? Positive, right up there on the inside. And look where they've ended up. And even Escobar, who was held up, but on the inside, they ended up dropping back. It was only those horses that came down the outside that finished well. Skeptic wasn't allowed that chance because they went down the inside and he was too far back. Whether Holly knew that and she thought, I'm not getting involved here, I'm going to go to the slower part of the track. If they go to the correct part of the track tomorrow, in a slightly easier race, based on the type of horses they're going to be up against, again they're getting the 3-year-old allowance. I think Skeptic is very interesting here, and at 10 to 1 I think he's worth backing to find out whether I was right about how the race was actually run at Sandown, and it just went against him, whereas back here, Callum back on board, if they come off the rail this time and come down the middle, I think he can run a really big race here. And at 10 to 1, he's my one for the final race of the day. So just a quick recap, the 150 I like Many a Star, who is a lower rated than when he won it last year. I don't think he's out of form. The tongue tie on to hopefully bring him back to his best kind of reminds me of Lord Ridderford in his campaigning. The second race, Yukon Glen, is £6 lower than when third. Should run well. Sweet William could be incredibly well handicapped though and still ahead of its mark. The 335, the Stewards Cup, Ratio is the one that is similar to Sweet William, could be still ahead of his mark. Things didn't quite go to plan at Ascot. Summergand is well handicapped, will win a race soon. I don't mind backing him 2, 3, 4 times if we then get a win at say 14, 16, 18 to 1. And the final one in this race, Mr. Wagyu, who is effectively £11 lower than when running okay in this race, finishing 10th. When he ran on soft ground the year before in the Stewards Cup consolation race, he was a very easy winner. And then in the final race, I like Skeptic to bounce back from his disappointing effort at Sandown when he went to the wrong part of the track. He went down the inside, but he went off favourite for a race that was better than this. Hopefully with Callum back on board, he can bounce back to form. And he's a nice price at 10 to 1. Thanks for listening. Hope you all have a great weekend. And let's, fingers crossed, we can end with a few winners.